state lawmakers across the nation. We'll hear from a Nevada legislator and the president of the Alaska Senate about legislative efforts to reach across state lines. And we'll take you behind the day's political headlines. Ralston Reports, next.
And now, Ralston Reports with John Ralston.
Welcome to Ralston Reports. We'll bring in newsmakers and commentary you won't find anywhere else. Let's start with a look behind today's political headlines. The dialogue in Washington is taking place on Twitter. It all started yesterday, actually, on the Senate floor when Majority Leader Harry Reid invoked former Speaker Newt Gingrich during a discussion of the upcoming budget showdown. Take a look.
If Republicans force us to the brink of another government shutdown for ideological reasons, the economy will suffer. I would suggest to any of my Republican colleagues that has this idea, give a call to Newt Gingrich. He'll return your phone calls and ask him how it worked. It was disastrous for Newt Gingrich, the Republicans, and the country.
I love that Harry Reid line, he'll return your phone calls. Well, today, Gingrich responded in tweets. Newt told followers Reid was misleading people about that 1995 government shutdown. Remember, it was all good. Even better, he challenged Reid to be a guest on his new CNN Crossfire program. Prince Harry versus Newt? Pass the popcorn. On second thought, I can think of a much better venue for Harry and Newt. It's one where Newt has been on more recently than Harry. By the way, I do Crossfire better than they ever will. Former Clark County District Attorney David Rogers lending his name to a Las Vegas defense firm, but not his services, it appears. Rogers currently works for the Police Protective Association, and the union's president confirms to Ralston Reports that Roger will be staying on, even though his name is moving on to a defense firm. Now, it's unclear what Roger will be doing for the firm. We hope to have more information from the former DA by tomorrow night, but it will be quite the trick for Roger, who prosecuted criminals working on the defense side while still working for the police union. That is some needle to thread. Who among the potential lieutenant governor candidates on the Republican side has the most name recognition in Nevada? Well, former state lawmaker turned city councilman Bob Beers, state senator Mark Hutchison, or Sue Loudon, who choked when she ran against U.S. Senator Harry Reid. Well, Loudon, of course. That was easy, and it didn't take a poll to determine. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported that poll, showing Loudon leading both the governor's choice, Mark Hutchison, and Beers. Now, the group that took the poll, Citizen Outreach, added a disclaimer, noting that President Chuck Muth is a longtime associate of both Sue Loudon and Bob Beers. And then Loudon said on Facebook that some of her, quote, supporters were testing the waters for her. Yes, that was obvious. And the RJ was used to play the polls straight. But whether it was fair or, well, foul, Loudon says she's still deciding whether or not to run. I doubt it. I just don't think she can shake the chickens for checkups specter from the 2010 Senate race. I guess her supporters forgot to ask about that in the poll. Another unsuccessful Republican Reid challenger may get back in the political game. Tea Party darling Sharon Angle is asking supporters what she should do next. Angle laments the state of the nation in videos on her website, SharonAngle.com. And she wants you to tell her what to run for. Congress, lieutenant governor, controller even, or, wait for it, maybe she should wait until 2016 to take on Harry Reid again. I'm only one vote, but I say, run, Sharon, run for anything. When we come back on Ralston Reports, we're going to talk to a couple of state government leaders, including one of Nevada's own, Kelvin Atkinson, and the president of the state senate in Alaska, Gary Stevens, will be here. Stick around.
Have a question or comment? You can email John, ralstonreports@gmail.com. And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. Lawmakers from across the nation are meeting in Las Vegas this week, and tackling some of the thorniest issues. Gay marriage, those controversial stand your ground laws, even more controversial after the George Zimmerman trial. Pot legalization, it's not just being considered down here in Nevada. What about up in Alaska? So earlier today, I sat down with Nevada's own state senator, Kelvin Atkinson, he's a Democrat, and with the president of the Alaskan State Senate, Republican Gary Stevens. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Senator Atkinson, you are the head of this conference, the Council of State Governments, and the theme is Bright Light Shining on the Progress of the West. What progress?
Well, there's a lot of progress. I think you have 13 western states that make up Council of State Governments West, and we look at where we were to where we're headed. We were talking about it on the way over here. You look at the Strip, you look at tourism. We could walk down the Strip 4 or 5 years ago and it'd almost be a ghost town. We were talking about last night, which was a Monday, walking through, and you see our tourism and our numbers, etc. I believe that our state is on a pretty good rebound, and I believe that we're making progress in a number of areas.
You know, some people watching this, Senator Stevens, are going to be wondering, you know, this is just some junket for a bunch of politicians, and some guy from Alaska wants to just come down here and enjoy the delights of Las Vegas. Tell me that's wrong and that the actual productive things will happen at this conference.
Actually, I do enjoy the bright lights of Las Vegas, but there's a reason for the conference, and it's to help new legislators as well as senior legislators understand, work on legislation, figure out how to improve things in their states. And actually, one of the biggest things we do is the Western Leadership Organization, which really trains legislators to help them understand how to do their job better.
I do want to talk about some issues that are common to all states and to the western states. Maybe talk about legalizing pot, gay marriage, stand your ground, which is all becoming controversial now in the wake of the Zimmerman verdict. But let me ask you, Senator, this supposedly the Council of State Governments West, and Senator Atkinson mentioned all the different states that are in there. Are there really commonalities? I mean, we like to think of ourselves in Nevada as a libertarian state. We're nothing compared to Alaska, are we?
Well, you don't have as many lakes as we do, maybe, but no, there's a lot of commonalities. And of course, CSG is a national organization with 4 regions. The West is one of them, and in my mind, the most important one, because I'm from the West, and I really do appreciate it.
But do you really think you have anything in common? I mean, you talked to Senator Atkinson. Do you have anything in common with them at all?
Oh, absolutely. The area I'm particularly interested in is education. And we have so much in common there. Things we have to figure out how to deal with Common Core, how to deal with high school graduation, how to deal with extended education over the internet, you know, all of those things. Those are very much common concerns and problems that we can learn from Nevada, and Nevada can learn from us.
You know, I don't want to, go ahead.
I think the important thing to remember is absolutely, one, we have things in common, and there are other things we do not have in common. And I think that through these conferences, what I have always learned, and which is why I'm so intimately involved in CSG West, is the things that we do not have in common, we're able to learn from each other.
Anything come to mind?
Well, you know, there are some definite funding and some definite, you know, different tax structures that we use, that Alaska uses, that some of us study sometime and take a look at. Certainly, absolutely, they have you know, more water than we ever could even imagine having. But just things that, you know, that we do not necessarily have in common, we study and take a look at.
Can we build a pipeline all the way up there and take their water too?
I've been trying that for 12 years.
We can do that, yes.
You know, I'm going to tell you something. He probably bring up some bad memories for the senator. About 11 or 12 years ago, he actually proposed a tax on everyone who was employed of $100 per employee. That's more progressive than anything that's been proposed by you or any Democrat in this state, sir. What about that?
But that's why you got to love the Council of State Governments West, because when we enter those buildings and we enter those conferences, we really do consider ourselves.
Did you hear what that idea I just gave you?
I like the idea.
I'm probably bringing. I started to sweat now. I'm bringing up bad memories. I mean, that was like 2002 or so. You brought that up. It went nowhere.
Yeah, no, but we used to have a tax for education, $100 a head, and it made sense, but public wasn't ready for that. So
And so how do you pay for education up there now?
Oil taxes.
Yeah, that's it. Pays for everything.
90% of our revenue comes from oil.
Let's talk about, I mentioned it earlier, I do want to talk about the controversy over Stand Your Ground. You have a Stand Your Ground
Very much
law.
so. Yeah.
There's a lot of talk of reevaluating those laws. We have one here. I got into quite the debate with one of Senator Atkinson's colleagues the other night. Do you think that law should be reevaluated in Alaska?
I don't think it ever will. It'll never change in Alaska. We will probably be the last state to change Stand Your Ground.
Last great frontier of America.
Very strong feelings about gun ownership and hunting, and so it would be very unlikely Alaska will change until the last state, you know.
Of course, Zimmerman did not use a Stand Your Ground defense, although it wasn't the jury instructions in that trial. Did it make you stop and think at all, reevaluate, do these laws make sense?
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I mean, if they had both been armed, I mean, and one shot the other, and the opposite, you know, of what it is, you know, it's very concerning to me. But as I say, Alaska has very, very strong beliefs, very strong NRA. Even our Democrats are members of the NRA in Alaska.
Well, what do you think, Senator? I haven't talked to you about this yet. Stephen Horsford, who was your colleague as the majority leader last session, the session before last, and now is in Congress, said that maybe some of these laws should be reevaluated. It's going around the country. Everyone in the legislature, except for 3 people, supported it when it passed in 2011. Should it be reevaluated, or is it an overreaction to what happened in Florida? What do you think?
Well, you know, look, there are things that happen. There's things that happen abroad that causes all of us to pause and take a look at some things either we have done or things that we are headed to doing. I think that everyone looks at our Stand Your Ground law a little bit differently than what appeared to have happened in Florida. And so when this does happen, we do take a pause and say, maybe we need to look at ours to make sure that this does not happen here in our state. And does that mean we repeal it? Does it mean we change it? Does it mean we amend it? I think that's what we're looking at. I myself have asked staff to do a side-by-side comparison of both laws, and I should have that analysis sometime next week of what the differences are. But I think at this point, we just want to make sure we don't end up with a Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman incident here in the state.
What would stop that from happening here, I guess, is what I'd ask you. What can you do to stop something like that from happening?
Well, you can't stop the incident itself from happening, but we can make sure that our law, in my opinion, and that, you know, I can only speak for myself, that we have a more enforceable law for someone who, you know, and I won't get into the who I thought was wrong and who I thought was right. I do believe that a child was profiled, followed, an incident occurred. I won't get into the basis of who instigated the physical part of it, but something definitely happened, and we have someone, in my opinion, that was murdered. And so I think we just want to make sure that our law is clear on who the aggressor may be, and is it okay to punish or make sure that the aggressor is dealt with.
As only you can do. You sure did a heck of a job of giving an opinion while saying you weren't going to give an opinion. Did you notice how we did that, Senator? Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other laws, other issues facing the western states and all states, maybe gay marriage, talk about legalizing pot. Alaska may do it before Nevada. Stick around.
Stay up to date on upcoming programs and join the discussion on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Ralston Reports. And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. We're talking about the Council of State Governments West. They're meeting right here in Las Vegas. And guess who's running the show? State Senator Kelvin Atkinson, who prefers to go on MSNBC and national television after his celebrity during the legislature, but has come on here with his friend Gary Stevens, who is a senator from Alaska. I want to talk about an issue that's big here, and we did a program on it this week, and that's medical marijuana, and maybe eventually leading to legalization. This has been an issue in your state for some time. You had a referendum back in 2004. It lost 56-44. This is to legalize it. And now there's talk that you're going to have a referendum again, maybe the next cycle, and it may get legalized. You think it will be?
Oh, I think it will be. In Alaska, yes. Yeah.
You support it?
Unlikely.
Why is that?
Well, I'm concerned, always concerned about the drugs and alcohol and tobacco and all of those things. And though I don't believe in the nanny state, it does concern me that whether it may be a gateway to other drugs.
That's what your governor said, as a matter of fact. That's what law enforcement, and I understand you're a Republican, and I understand a lot of Republicans feel that way, but you were a professor. Come on, you did that stuff on campus with the students. Come on, Professor.
Well, I was the only Republican in the University of Alaska, a tenured professor.
Is that true?
No, no. There were very few of us, though.
But you think it's going to pass because you think the population wants it? You're such a libertarian state. Why do you think it'll pass?
I think you're right. I think the population wants it. They're ready, and we'll see, but it's most likely it'll pass.
The marijuana policy project's already up there. They're pushing it. They're going to be here. They said in the story I read, they hope it's Alaska's next, and maybe Nevada and some other states in 2016. I talked to your colleague, Tick Segerblom, on this program about it this week. Do you think it's coming here, Senator?
I believe so. I mean, just as this senator from Alaska just said, I do believe it is. I mean, I think that public perception has changed on a lot of different things, and you know, we get into laws that are one, as Alaska already has, possession, and then dispensary as what we're moving to. I think they all become hand in hand, and if you look at any poll in this state, just as Alaska, we're trending towards the popularity of having it.
Do you support it? Do you think it's a good idea?
I do.
Why do you think it's good? I mean, you don't worry about what your colleague here talks about, that it's a gateway drug. That's what law enforcement always says.
Absolutely, I do. I do believe in that, but I also believe that we need to have mechanisms in place so that we have some type of control over that. You know, look, folks that want to do it are doing it. People that want to possess or want to use marijuana are doing it. This at least gives us some control over it and gives us some mechanism that we can at least deal with it, because they're going to do it with our law without it, but at least this gives us some kind of parameters to deal with.
And not only that, and I'm wondering, to push back on your position for a bit, I mean, there's some legislators, both Republicans and Democrats, that say just exactly what the senator from Nevada just said, and you know what, let's get some money out of this for the state. It's a good source of revenue, considering the number of pot smokers out there. It's probably a steady source of revenue. You don't buy that argument?
Well, you know, I think on an issue like this, and an issue, say, of gay marriage or whatever the issue might be, if it's such a big, important division among the population, let the population vote on it. Let the citizens vote. Let them decide. There are times when I think legislatures should make decisions, but there are other times when let the public have a vote on it and give us their opinion, and that's what we'll do.
You know, my experiences with politicians, and I don't know enough about you and put you know what category you're in, but politicians say that let the public decide on issues that are too hot for them to handle, that they don't want to get in trouble with their constituents. Let's put this on the ballot. We elect you to make decisions.
Not when it's so hard to handle, but when it's so divisive, when there's such a difference of opinion, you know, that's appropriate at times.
But that's an argument to put every tax on the ballot, then, if I can play devil's advocate.
I voted for taxes issues that all the time, and that doesn't bother me. But an issue of a social matter like gay marriage or like marijuana, I believe that's an issue that the public should have a chance to weigh in on.
Speaking of that, well, there is a tax issue on the ballot. You're one of the few Democrats I could actually get a straight answer out of on that margins tax. It's a terrible way to make public policy for taxes, I think, to put it on the ballot. What's going to happen with that, do you think?
You know, again, when people delve into the aspects of it, I'm saying I support it because I think it's going to pass. I think that the citizens themselves.
You really think it's going to pass, Senator?
I think so. I look at the way we've been doing business with regards to education over the last few years. I look at the attempts that we have made to increase funding for education, and the last two sessions before this one, we've actually made huge cuts to education. And you ask people around town, people in our schools, our teachers, even just the regular public, they're tired of being last. They're tired of being 50th. They're tired of being 49th. And we have potential businesses that want to relocate here that consider that. They look at our numbers and they say, not my child in that education system.
See how reasonable he can sound? It doesn't happen that often. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about gay marriage and what the senator from Alaska thinks about it. And, of course, I've saved a big question for last. Can he, too, see Russia from his backyard? Stick around.
Find archive programs by going online to mynews3.com and clicking on Ralston Reports. Stay up to date on upcoming programs and join the discussion on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. The Council for State Governments West is right here in Las Vegas this week. Kelvin Atkinson, who's a state senator from Nevada, is heading it up. He's the boss, and he's brought with him Gary Stevens, who is a state senator. He's the head of the state senate in Alaska. Let's talk about gay marriage in Alaska. I know way back in '98 there was a referendum that essentially said marriage is between a man and a woman. Do you think it's going to change up there ever?
I don't think so, at least not for a long, long time. And Alaska is very conservative, and mostly Republican governors, senators.
Legalized pot, but not gay marriage.
Yeah,
though?
yeah. It's. I think that's my take on how the voters would respond to that.
Now, one of your pals from back there, who's now changed jobs, Lisa Murkowski, she was one of your colleagues. You endorsed her in that primary for the U.S. Senate. She is one of the few Republican senators, as you know, to come out and say, I've evolved on gay marriage. Is there an evolution in your future, sir?
You know, there might be. I mean, I certainly think that hopefully folks in Alaska agree that everyone has rights and civil rights and all that. I just think it's not going to happen in Alaska for a very long time. I appreciate what Murkowski has done. She's been a great senator, and she's probably to the left of most of Alaska.
So you think if it was on the ballot to change it, they would just have no chance?
No chance.
No chance? I mean, landslide, no chance?
No chance.
Isn't that depressing to you as one of the people who's fought for it here in this state, sir?
I wouldn't say it's depressing for me. I mean, you know, obviously this is, you know, because the feds have not acted on it. I think that when they've acted in increments as far as, you know, doing what they did in California, I think we need to take care of our business here in Nevada, and I think Nevada certainly is on the cusp of making sure that it is a reality here. You know, it's not depressing for me that Alaska won't do it. I don't have any intentions on moving there, but nothing against you, Senator. But I think you have to look at the overall map of America, and you have to look at the states that we're going to be able to affect change with regards to gay marriage and marriage equality. And I think there will be states like Alaska. I think there will be states in the South that will be very, very late coming into the fold. And you just have to realize that going in. And if you get yourself frustrated trying to worry about the states that will be last, then we're not going to ever be a first. And so we're going to have to focus on the states that we believe will be able to do it, focus on the states that will be able to embrace gay marriage. And we've got to focus our attention there. And then hopefully by that time, some of these later states will say, this is where it's going, this is where it's headed. You know, Nevada's getting all this revenue as a result of it, because I believe that we will become one of the capitals in gay marriage, and that, you know what, we may as well, because that's where public is now, and we may as well go ahead and join forces with everyone else.
You know, gentlemen, I really appreciate your willingness to come out. I know you're busy down at the conference. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Senator Stevens. Thanks for coming on. Always good to see you, Senator. Enjoy the conference, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And on the next Ralston Reports, more of the issues that matter to you from people in the know, only on Nevada's Information Network. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for watching.